Good morning. Everybody hear me all right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Commissioner Maestas.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Just checking.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning, Eugene. How are you?
Doing just fine, thank you.
Morning, Eugene.
Good morning.
That's such a realistic photo, Eugene. I thought that was you.
That's my poker face.
It's pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday, Madam Chair.
Oh, well, thank you, Colin.
You're
Oh
most
my
welcome.
goodness.
Yeah,
Happy birthday.
thank you. Thank you very much.
What public
Happy
service
birthday.
dedication.
Yes, we do have to work on our birthdays. Let's see, it's 9:30. I think we should get started. Today is okay. Today is Wednesday, December 7th, 2022. It's 9:30 in the morning, and this is the weekly regular weekly meeting of the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. I'm Commissioner Chair Cynthia Hall, and we'll get started. I think we'll start with a call to order and the roll call. Could someone take the roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Michael Smith. Commissioner Byrd.
I'm a present.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Here.
Commissioner Fishman. I'm not sure if I heard a noise. I'm not sure that was.
No, that's me. Sorry.
Okay. Appears we do not have Commissioner Fishman. Commissioner Maestas
I'm here.
and Commissioner Hall.
Here.
We have 4 commissioners present, constitutes a quorum for purposes of conducting business.
Thank you,
Madam
Michael.
Chair.
Fishman has just shown up.
There he is.
We now have a full commission of 5 members.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's see. Let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. Hans, could you do the pledge?
I'll be happy to.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you, Hans. Now let's have consideration and approval of the agenda. I think we've got a couple of cases to remove.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have a couple to remove.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's both of my regular action items. I'll bring them back next week. It's just one of them is 20-00170 UT, which is concerning the rulemaking for the institutional operator service providers. I just have probably about 15 more pages to go on that order, so I can bring it back next week, and there will still be 2 meetings then to consider that rulemaking, because we now have since the commission is going to hold a meeting on the 19th as well. So it's just many more comments than I had anticipated. And then my other matter on the regular action agenda, the report to the legislature in docket number 22-00222 UT. Well, that's also on the regular agenda. I'll bring that back next week.
Okay, so and just to go over that again, that's 20-00170-UT, right?
Yes,
And 22-00222-UT.
that's correct.
Okay,
Madam
great.
Chair, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And Madam Chair, this is Michael Smith, also case 20-00222 UT, which is, I think, 9B6 on the agenda also. That would come back next week.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much, both of you guys. I know you're working hard. All right, so any other changes to the agenda? Commissioners? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Can I have a second from someone?
Second.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Byrd. We got a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
The agenda as amended, is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you very much, Mike. Moving on to introduction of special guests. Do we have any today, folks? Anyone sign up? That would be public comment. Do we have any special guests unannounced? I guess not. All right, we'll move on to public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
Madam Chair, I have not had anyone reach out for public comment today.
All right, thank you, Hans.
Thank you.
Next, we have consideration and approval of prior meeting minutes. These would be the minutes of November 9th, 2022. Open meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes?
Commissioners. Talk about the
Folks, I hear somebody saying something.
I believe Mr. Rilkoff's microphone is on.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I don't hear any changes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. We got a motion and a second. Can we get a vote? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd, I heard a click, but I
Aye.
didn't hear. Thank you. Commissioner Hall
Aye.
and Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Aye.
The minutes for the November 9th, 2022 open meeting are approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so moving on, we have a discussion item. It is pertains to request for proposals 2023-0002 on the statewide evaluator to provide measurement and verification services for New Mexico investor-owned utilities, electric and gas energy efficiency and load management programs. This will be a discussion presented by Ed Rilkoff, our Utility Division Director. So Ed, please take it away and welcome.
Thank you, Chair Hall, and good morning, Commissioners. Yes, today I'm going to talk about the selection process for the statewide independent evaluator. And Hans, if I could get the screen sharing, please.
Give us 1 minute, Ed, here.
Problem.
Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we have the selection process. On this first slide, it says it's for 2023 to 2025. And of course, on the first slide, we have an asterisk, which it provides for renewal for an additional 3 years. So effectively, we're really looking at a 6-year term for the independent evaluator.
Ed, I'm sorry, I don't see slides. Am I supposed to be seeing slides?
Yes, I have the share screen on. Let me,
I'm just seeing the agenda.
okay, is that working now?
Yes. Great.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, in terms of the table of contents, we're going to go through. I think we could probably get this done in around 10 minutes, but the relative statute and regulations for the selection process, a little bit about the statewide independent evaluator. I'm going to quickly take you through the selection process, and finally show you the results and a recommendation. The statute that's in place here is the Efficient Use of Energy Act, which was signed in 2005, has amended several times since then. And essentially, it requires utilities to develop efficiency programs to reduce energy demand and consumption. There's a lot of requirements that come with the programs, and utilities have to, provide a portfolio of programs subject to certain things, such as the utility cost test. They're allowed to recover costs through approved tariff riders. And finally, they're allowed to have the opportunity to earn a return or a profit on effective programs. The required savings achievements have changed over the years. The program's been in place for, I think, around 17 years. And the requirements for the 5-year period starting with 2021 are for 5% of 2020 retail kilowatt hour savings. And there's also going to be new targets for 2026 to 2030, and those still have to be determined prior to that period. And funding for these programs is set at 3 to 5% of the utilities retail sales. The rules that are in place are 17.7.2.15 of the New Mexico Administrative Code, and it deals with measurement and verification. And basically what happens here is the utility is required to submit an independent annual report complying with the EU EA, and it lays out all the details about the programs. And then there's a comprehensive program requirement every 3 years. And the PRC has certain rights, including directing a utility to change or terminate programs that aren't effective by meeting the goals. Paragraph B of the rule lays out, basically this presentation, and the commission through its staff will select and direct an independent evaluator to prepare and submit the M&V reports to the commission. Staff may consult with public utilities and interested parties. Third paragraph of the rule states that the staff shall undertake a competitive bid process and develop the RFP in all its terms, and receive, review, score, and rank the responses and present them to the commission. There's several other requirements that are also part of this paragraph C. So essentially, when we look at the statewide independent evaluator, we're looking at, the purpose is to document the savings from the energy efficiency plans through an independent party. And because these programs have been going on for a long time, feedback is critical. You want to constantly improve, and you want to provide information that feeds into the IRP process. Kind of interesting, last week, I think it was the El Paso Energy RFP was on the open meeting agenda, and Chair Hall asked about the technical resources manual, and Russell stated, yes, that's part of the M&V program, and here's where it shows up, is that there is this manual that's updated frequently by the independent evaluator, and again, it's to provide constant feedback and an upgrade of the different programs and how they're measured and verified. If you look at the current M&V practice, it's not surprising. It ties back to the statute and regulations, and the utilities file annual reports with the independent evaluation report attached. They do the comprehensive evaluations every 3 years, and they also provide other information. For example, the top 2 programs and programs in their first year. Now, this is very interesting, and it's especially from Renata's point of view, because it's the utilities and not the PRC that will enter into contracts with the independent evaluator. So what we're doing here is we're, per statute and regulations, we're putting together all the work to recommend an evaluator, and then we hand it off to the utilities. And I've already mentioned that there's an option to extend the contract for an additional 3 years. In terms of the RFP and selection committee, the RFP was handled by Renata, whose title in this is the procurement manager. And what's really different that's happened for the first time with this RFP is rather than the utility division conducting the RFP, it's Renata and her group have been doing it. So she's brought her, professional skills to the RFP process. And I have to say that it's been actually outstanding, the work that Renata has done. Everything is done electronically. The process was all laid out really nicely so that the selection committee got the information when they needed it. And we ended up getting the bids on time. We had instructions on how to evaluate them. We each evaluated them individually, and then as part of the group under a discussion and debate forum. And so I know that a lot of time was saved the way the whole RFP was constructed and the way it worked. The selection committee, I already mentioned that we're looking at utilities and interested parties. So of course we have the 3 electric utilities, and we have the 3 gas utilities, and also a member from the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. These are people that deal with energy efficiency and demand side management every day. These are experts in their field. And, I have to say, after doing independent evaluations of the bids and getting into the group discussion, I know I changed a lot of my responses a lot based on the expertise of the selection committee. And they're great to work with, and I appreciate their work here. The RFP timeline, again, everything went very smoothly. There's a lot of work before September 12th, but September 12th, the RFP was issued. And then the next big date was November 4th, when the proposals were submitted. We ended up getting 3 proposals, and all the work by the selection committee was done in November. And we're looking at number 10 here, the presentation of the independent evaluator. We're originally looking at a December 14th date, and here we are at December 7th. I just wanted to touch quickly on the evaluation criterion. There was a total amount of 500 points that we rated the proposals on, and they consisted of organizational experience doing this type of work, references. The mandatory specification was 150 points. That was the scope of work and a lot of the detailed information in the reporting. And finally, cost was 200 points or 40% of this total. There were a couple other provisions, a New Mexico preference and a veterans preference that was also available. But essentially, we're looking at a total of 500 points. Coming to the final slide, the results and recommendation. We ended up getting 3 proposals, and all the companies that made proposals were very solid candidates. We reviewed, scored, and ranked the responses, and surprisingly, the results were very close. Out of the 500 points, the scores came in at 425, 435, and 446. And the recommended bidder with the most points at 446 was Ecometric Consulting, they are actually the incumbent. They've been doing the work for the last 6 years on this. And Ecometrics will enter into the bilateral contract with each of the utilities. So that concludes the presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Commissioners, are there any questions or comments that Mr. Rilkoff?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Fishman.
Yes, thank you. Ed, I was noticing that a lot of the, on the committee that chooses, that was basically comprised of the utilities themselves. Were there, I can't recall, were there any other entities involved? Anyone from staff that sits on that committee or?
Well, I was the staff member on the committee, so I voted as well. And we also had a member from SWEEP that was on.
Right.
So.
Okay. That was it. Thank you, Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yeah.
Fishman. Yeah. Yes, I noticed that makeup too, but looks like they ended up with the incumbent. And the scores look very close. So sounds like a good process. Anybody have any other comments? Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Rilkoff. I know it takes a lot of work to go through this. It sounds like Renata made it go very smoothly. And we'll have to give her congratulations on that too. And so thank you both very much for this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to consent action items, the consent agenda. And Mike, can you read out the case numbers and captions?
Yes, Madam Chair. The consent action items are transportation matters 22-00301 TREN and 22-00284 TRN. That's in the matter of the investigation of Albuquerque Courtesy and Parking LLC, and in the matter of the investigation of Enchantment Towing LLC. That's a potential order regarding the amended petition for orders to show cause and cease and desist, consolidating cases and assigning a hearing examiner. The utility matters are case 22-00097 UT in the matter of applications for the 2023 broadband program support from the State Rural Universal Service Fund as per Rule 17.11.10.31 NMAC. That's a potential order regarding Optimum's second motion to supplement record, or in the alternative, motion for reconsideration. And then case 22-00136 UT in the matter of the verified petition of NMSurf Inc. for designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier. And that's a potential order regarding the recommended decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike. Any comment on anything about the consent action items, commissioners? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda, that part of the agenda, the consent action items.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioners Maestas and Byrd. I've got a motion and a second. Let's hear the roll call, please.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Aye.
Commissioner Hall.
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas.
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
Aye.
The consent action items are approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, let's move on to the regular action items. For transportation matters, we have no regular action items. For utility matters, our first item is case number 22-00099-UT in the matter of a rulemaking to promulgate amendments to NMPRC Rule 17.1.2 NMAC, applications for new rates and new sections in 17.3.510 and New Mexico Administrative Code and 17.3.610 NMAC to require annual reporting by electric and gas utilities. Hans Miller will present a potential order adopting the rule. So please proceed, Hans. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. As you might recall, this matter for rulemaking was initiated on March 23rd at the Commission's open meeting, where we had discussed, particularly Commissioner Maestas had discussed with John Reynolds at the time for an update on the status of compliance monitoring and recommendations requiring public utilities to include in their rate case filings their current compliance with Commission's final orders over the previous 5 years. On April 17th, 2002, staff petitioned to open the docket to initiate a rulemaking to amend the rules. The Commission issued the first notice of public rulemaking on May 11th, 2002. The amendments of the first NOPR, NOPRA were substantially similar to staff's proposals. Initial and response comments were filed and a public hearing was held. However, Office of General Counsel noticed due to, unfortunately, the incident earlier in this year within our office that proper public notice had not been fully provided. So we issued a second NOPR, thereby correcting the notice defect. And the proposed rules of that second NOPR are similar to the proposals of the first one, but adopted some of the language that was commented on, particularly with the city of Las Cruces and staff. The proposed rules then are comprised really of 3 simple edits to the 3 rules. In short, they would delete the existing compliance reporting requirement in Rule 17.1.2 and move that requirement to new annual compliance reporting requirements in Rules 510 and 610. Additionally, the proposed rules would include a procedure for staff to review the annual compliance reports and inform the Commission. First, as I indicated, Rule 17.1.2 NMAC, which is entitled Utility Applications, is amended to remove the compliance requirement. Second, Rule 17.3.510.12, which is entitled Uniform System of Accounts and Annual Report Forms for Electric Utilities, is amended to add the following subsections, which reads, each utility that is affected by NMPUC Rule 510 shall provide a detailed report annually for each calendar year, not later than April 30th of the following year, setting forth and listing its compliance or failure to comply with each part of the Commission's final order in each of the cases decided that the utility has a requirement of compliance ordered during the preceding 5 years or since the utility's last general rate case order, whichever period is longer. And Section D would read, the staff of the Utility Division will review the annual reports for compliance and will, in writing, request additional information from the utility if required. Staff will compile the annual reports and the Division Director of the Utility Division will provide a written report to the Commission on or before July 1st of the reporting year. The third change is proposed Rule 17.3.610.14, entitled Uniform System of Accounts and Annual Report Forms, is amended to add the following sections for B and C. Part B would now read, each utility affected by NMPCS Rule 610 shall provide a detailed report annually for each calendar year, not later than April 30th of the following year, setting forth and listing its compliance or failure to comply with each part of the Commission's final order. In each of the cases decided that the utility has a requirement of compliance ordered in the preceding 5 years or since the utility's last general rate case order, whichever period is longer. And Part C would now read, the staff of the Utility Division will review the annual reports for compliance and will, in writing, request additional information from the utility if required. Staff will compile the annual reports and the Division Director of the Utility Division will provide a written report to the Commission on or before July 1st of the reporting year. The proposed rule, I must say, the proposed rules and suggestions here have been largely uncontroversial. They did not really generate any serious opposition or really much in the way of responsive comments or counter proposals. The only change to the proposed rules that the final order would adopt is staff's recommendation to change the word compile to summarize in subsection D of proposed Rule 510 and subsection C of proposed Rule 610. There were other recommendations similar to the City of Las Cruces and El Paso Electric Company, which are rejected in the final order. The city had proposed that Section 12 of Rule 510 and Section 4 of Rule 610 should be amended to require public utilities to file with the Commission several FERC forms. However, I feel that proposal was beyond the scope of this rulemaking, and it is clear really from the record that such FERC forms are easily accessible on FERC's website. EPE had proposed that instead of a 5-year requirement to provide compliance information, the proposed rule should start with a single-year requirement and build year on year until there is 5 years worth of information. Their recommendation basically would accomplish the same thing as the proposed rules, but it would be, to me, in a slightly more complicated and delayed manner, rather than what the rules project. So with that, as I indicated, the rules are really largely uncontroversial. I expect this to go in short order. And I would be remiss, even though I'm the one presenting today, if I did not tip my hat to Robert Lundin for his assistance in making this final order and getting it in shape. His assistance here has been greatly appreciated, and he deserves the majority of the credit for getting this ready to publish. So I appreciate his assistance. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
I said, thank you very much, Hans. I appreciate this very clear presentation. And as you say, thank you very much, Mr. Lundin. Commissioners, any questions?
Madam Chair, not so much a question, but just a few comments. As some of you may know, I was a bit critical regarding our efforts to ensure compliance with our orders. We had some lapses, I think, last year, and we had discussed, different ways of how the agency can internally strengthen its efforts to ensure compliance with our orders. As my understanding, I guess, in the past, the agency did have a unit dedicated to compliance. And of course, we don't have that anymore. I did a scanning tour when I went to Arizona, and that corporation commission has a subunit within the utility division devoted to compliance. But I think in light of our limited resources, I think this is a really good way to have the utilities basically self-certify their compliance and demonstrate their compliance with our orders. And so I think this is part of the legacy of this particular commission, that we are looking at other things that may not be as sexy, but are very important, which is compliance with our orders. And so I too want to join Hans in commending Rob in helping to bring this home. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention John Reynolds. I know that I read him the Riot Act at some point about this, but I credit him for actually acting on it as well, and looking for other ways of how to strengthen our compliance with our orders. So I'm very pleased. I think I said trust but verify, and I think that this effort epitomizes that philosophy in lieu of having the right amount of resources to have a unit solely dedicated to compliance. So I support this, and I'm very happy to see it come before the full commission. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maestas. Any other comments or questions for Hans?
Just,
Yes, Commissioner
Madam Chair,
Fisher. Yes.
just basically a ditto on Commissioner Maestas' remarks. And a thank you to him for pushing this issue, because we all knew it's a hole in our resources and has been a hole in our process. So it's great to take this step forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. Anybody else have any comments? I just want to commend everybody who was involved in this, because I think it's a very good step forward too. I want to echo the positive comments that have been made. I did have one quick question, Hans, wherein you mentioned a suggestion by EPE that compliance reporting be done annually for the first 5 years, and that's similar to what we have included in our rule. Could you just explain that, what the similarity is? I was just curious about that.
Sure. And let me just pull up. Let me just pull up that portion of the order so I can be clear on it.
Okay.
I think that the nutshell here is that they had requested is basically the determination of the preceding 5 years that we referred to. And the order specifies that really the first preceding 5-year period shall be January 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2002 for purposes of this order. EPE had basically indicated they wanted to kind of build year by year until we get to a 5-year period.
Oh, I see.
And which would accomplish the same thing within within a 5-year period, but it just kind of complicates which year would be the applicable one that we're reporting on. And whereas it's very, to me, the proposed rule as it stands, yes, and the order clarifies that the first 5-year period is January 1st, 2018, December 31st, 2002, and really just starts us off.
I see.
Initially, like we had, which I think is more consistent with the intention of when we drafted the notice of public rulemaking.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much. That clarifies it for me. Okay, well, if there are no other comments or questions, we'll move on to the next case. And thank you very much for that very concise presentation, Hans.
I do need to vote.
Yeah, I'd like to move to approve the order.
Oh, yes. Yeah, right. Yes. Okay, I've got a motion. I need a second.
I will second.
Okay. The motion is second. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Aye.
The order is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, now we'll move on to the next case. And that is case number 21-00318-UT in the matter of request for approval of general rate adjustment pursuant to 17.9.540 New Mexico Administrative Code, Jemez Mountain Electric Cooperative Incorporated. Judith Amer will present a potential final order on certification of stipulation. Good morning, Judy.
Yes. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the commission. As was just detailed to you, this comes before you on the certification of stipulation. written by hearing examiner Robert Lennon. It is uncontested and unopposed, and the proposed order adopts the uncontested certification of stipulation in its entirety, which approves the stipulation. I'll just briefly read from the certification for your information. And Robert Lennon apparently is available if you have any questions, but this is a fairly straightforward matter. The certification states, having evaluated the facts and evidence and considering the record as a whole, the hearing examiner finds that the stipulation satisfies all of the commission's standards for approval and is in the public interest. The stipulation and the global settlement are the result of arm's length negotiations among various parties with competing interests, where the parties were represented by capable, knowledgeable experts who brought a full range of perspectives to the settlement negotiations. The stipulation does not violate any regulatory principle or practice, nor does it depart from any commission rule or precedent. Finally, the stipulation is in the public interest and will result in fair, just, and reasonable rates. Therefore, based upon the preponderance of the evidence in the record, the hearing examiner recommends the commission approve the stipulation as follows. Number one, the final accounting and resolution of issues related to JMEC's base rate increase of 9.33% as provided by paragraph 6 of the stipulation is fair, just, and reasonable and should be approved. 2, the residential monthly facility charge increase to the amount of $22, which will be increased in 2 phases as described in paragraph 7 of the stipulation, is fair, just, and reasonable and should be approved.
Judy, excuse me, do you want to put that up on screen share? I know we had a practice of doing that before. And I think since this is a rate case, even though it's uncontested and stipulated, it's nice to put the language up for the public to see.
Of the stipulation?
Yes. Whatever you're reading. I mean, the stipulation, yes.
Well,
are you reading from the order, I believe, aren't you?
I'm reading from the certification of stipulation, which was provided to you in your packet. In addition, attached to the certification of stipulation was the actual stipulation. Okay. So I can.
So could you put the certification on the screen?
Yes.
I'll have it up in a second.
Okay. Thanks.
I'll keep going. The certification did set forth the evidence in support of the stipulation. There were 6 witnesses, including 2 from staff, 1 from the co-attorney general, and
Can you direct Hans to the right page that will relate to what you're saying?
The certification, would you like to be directed to the actual stipulation or to?
No.
Okay.
Well, whatever is easier for you, but I just thought so the public can follow along.
All right. I'll have to find the exact page too.
The parties are at the beginning. If that's what you're listing, who the parties are, they're right at the beginning of the certification.
This was in the analysis section, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's on page.
7 and 8, starting
Page
on.
19.
What?
Page 19 of the certification of stipulation. And I'll continue until we actually have it up on the screen. On page 19, it says, 6 witnesses testified at the public hearing and submitted testimony in support of the stipulation. And each witness supported the stipulation as reasonable. All parties were involved in the negotiations that resulted in the settlement memorialized by the stipulation. JMEC's CEO and general manager filed his testimony in support of the stipulation, stating that the unopposed stipulation balances the interest of JMEC in securing financial stability and in order to achieve its goals of providing reliable, safe, and reliable service, as well as the interests of JMEC's members in having electric service at fair, just, and reasonable rates. Staff expert Alicia Labor-Tosero stated that, quote, regarding the benefit of JMEC's ratepayer members, the stipulation limits the increase to customers when compares to the 5.583712 million or 11.65 increase initially requested by JMEC in its amended application in this case, and phases in the stipulated facility charge for residential service to further mitigate the impact on JMEC's ratepayer members. As a result, the stipulation balances the interests of the parties to this case, thus benefiting the public interest. Staff expert Dr. Bryce E.A. Zadalis stated that, quote, staff believes that the stipulation provides Jemez with the opportunity to earn a fair and reasonable base revenue increase in a manner that adequately addresses the issues enunciated by the parties to this case. As such, staff believes the stipulation is in the public interest and respectfully requests that the stipulation be approved. Last, NMAG expert Andrea Crane supported the stipulation as follows, quote, the unopposed stipulation results in a revenue increase for the co-op's ratepayers that is approximately 20% less than the 5.6 million originally requested by Jemez in its application. In addition, the revenue increase is supported by my direct testimony as well as the testimony filed by staff in this case. The class cost allocations are generally consistent with the results of the amended costs of service study and will move rates closer to the costs being incurred by each class. The residential monthly facility charge will increase is also significantly less than the increase originally requested and will be phased in over 2 years, mitigating the impact of the increase. The additional provisions regarding publishing the work plan and certain expense information will enhance transparency, while the bylaw committee provisions will facilitate accountability and oversight by the co-op members. And lastly, I'd just like to say that the signatory parties of this unopposed stipulation are Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op, Utility Division staff, Attorney General of the State of New Mexico, and protester Loida Martinez, intervener. And I stand for questions. And as I said, Robert Lennon, the hearing examiner, who conducted a hearing on the certification of on the stipulation and gathered the evidence, is also available for questions.
Thank you very much, Judy. Commissioners, does anyone have any questions of Judy or any comments on this certification of stipulation?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Maestas.
as you all know, Jemez Mountain Electric Co-op is in my district, and I think it's very clear to everyone that, you know, this agency has minimal oversight over co-ops, but I think here is a case study where the process worked, where you had a Jemez co-op member mobilize other members to protest a proposed rate increase. It was uncovered that the cost of service study that was the original basis for the initial application was not accurate, because I believe it covered an area during the pandemic which is not reflective of the more current circumstances. And so I think the modified cost of service study really broke this case open. And so I want to thank Ms. Martinez for coming forward on behalf of other members and ensuring that Jemez was accountable in their proposed rate increase. And I think the stipulation is very fair and balanced and seeks to minimize rate shock. And so again, this proves that the process that we do have in place can result in fair, just, and reasonable rates, even for rural electric co-ops. And I know that there are certain co-ops that just as soon be completely deregulated, which I disagree with. So I'm very proud that this effort, this protest, resulted in a non-controversial stipulation. And I want to thank Bob Lennon and others that contributed to this outcome. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maestas. I agree that it does demonstrate that the process works, and however, it relies on the industry of, and the energy of interested ratepayers of the co-op. And so I think it's fortunate that we had someone step up and organize other of the co-op members. I don't know that always happens, but at least the process permits that to happen. And I agree. I wish we had a better way of dealing with co-ops, but right now this is a shining example, it sounds like, of how our process should work. Any other commissioners have any comments on this or questions of Judy? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the certification of stipulation.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Maestas. Any second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, well, I'll have Jeff Bird second at this time. All right, I have a motion and a second. Could I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman,
Aye.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd.
See.
Okay.
The order is approved by a vote of 5-0.
All right, thank you very much, Mike. Okay, well, move on to another case to be handled by Ms. Amer. It's case number 20-00158 UT in the matter of commission rulemaking regarding NMPRC Rule 17.9.572 NMAC, Renewable Energy for Electric Utilities. Judith Amer will present a potential final order. So take it away, Judy.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. At the outset, I would like to say that that similar to what Han said, that I need to thank Robert Lundin for all his hard work on this rule. It would not have been as thorough and good job without his help. And I asked him if he would present today, but he declined. So that being said, I will present the final rule changes that I went through in great detail last week, and I can go back over the reasoning for any of the changes if you would like me to. But at this point, I would request that Robert be allowed to do a screen share of what the final revisions to the rule, not to the actual rule, what you'll be looking at on your screen is the changes to the NOPRD rule. And I explained them, as I said, in detail last week, but I can go through what the NOPR originally said. And with that,
So yes, please do have a screen share. That'd be great.
yes, that is what there. I believe we have it right now. Okay, so I'm gonna. All right. So the first change that we talked about last week was, and let's scroll down to the the definition of average annual levelized cost. And this is an important piece of the reasonable cost threshold definition, and it had never been defined in our first rulemaking. And this is as close as you could get to a consensus agreement among all the participants for a definition of average annual levelized cost. And I can read it right now, or we can move on.
Judy, does reading it include reading through those formulas?
Well, yes.
So I don't require that. I can see them. But if you'd like to.
No, and this is technical, but as I stated, all parties weighed in, and if you can see the red line additions are the result of commenters making good suggestions of items that needed to be included in the definition.
Yes, I see that very clearly.
So
they look very productive.
With that, we'll move on to the next definition change, which is, I believe, procure or procurement. And EPE made a comment to add the phrase, but does not include agreements to purchase energy or capacity from a qualifying facility pursuant to 17.9.570 NMAC. Qualifying facilities are regulated by PURPA, and PURPA mandates that the utility purchases from a qualifying facility in accordance with its rules and regulations. There were other changes that were requested by EPE to carve out procurements that were carve-outs in the IRP rule. However, the proposed order does not make that change because the two standards are not necessarily exactly the same, and we did not feel it was necessary to include a cross-reference to the IRP rule. So the proposed final rule will only have the addition of, but does not include agreements to purchase energy or capacity from a qualifying facility pursuant to Rule 570.
Okay.
I stand for questions on this section.
Commissioners, any questions? Is that clear to you? Okay, that's clear to me. All right, Judy, I think we're fine. You want to move on?
Yes. Next, we will move on to, we'll scroll down to the next change, which I believe was, oh, yes, this is what's known as the DG rec issue, and distributed generation from residential distributed generation customers, known as qualifying facilities. And I'll just refresh your memory. EPE currently is the only investor-owned utility that claims for purposes of RPS compliance, all of the RECs generated by its DG customers, not just the excess RECs. It is allowed to claim for RPS purposes excess RECs that are over and above the amount of energy that the DG customer actually utilizes behind the meter. But EPE claims all of the RECs, even the RECs that the DG customer actually uses for itself. And this rule would close that practice.
What did you say, Judy? They close that process? What was that verb you said?
It would prevent EPE from continuing that practice.
Okay.
It would bring EPE in line with the practice of the other two investor-owned utilities who do not claim all of the RECs from the DG customer. They only claim the excess net energy. And it's this rule specifically cross-references the statute 16.5, which claims 3 exceptions, and we don't I can read to you what they are if you'd like me to. I have them, but the basic concept behind this is that in order to claim energy generated for RPS compliance, the energy has to be delivered to the utility. And the energy that is generated behind the meter is not and consumed by the customer for their own purposes is not delivered to the utility.
Correct.
And I stand for questions on this section.
Commissioners, any questions of Judy on this section? Okay, Judy, just to make clear, the RECs that El Paso Electric company would prefer to claim that have not been delivered to them are the excess RECs of the producer, correct?
No, it's the excess RECs are delivered to the utility.
All right.
It's the non-excess RECs.
Mm-hmm.
The non-excess RECs are used by the customer.
Okay.
However, EPE claims all of the RECs, both the non-excess and the excess. Is that
okay? Yeah. Okay. So EPE was in the past claiming as their own RECs the RECs associated with energy that the prosumers produced and consumed.
Exactly. They were not excess.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate your clarifying that. And I think it's important that this has been addressed because that's been the understanding for many years. And I'm glad that it's made crystal clear for a company that hasn't been engaging in that practice. So thank you for that.
Yes. And we can move on if there's no other questions. So scrolling down to the next section. This is a small change to clarify that there's not a retroactive application of this rule, that the RCT analyzes proposed procurements, not existing or past procurements. I think that's fairly straightforward, and unless there are any questions, we can keep moving down, scrolling down to number 15. Oh, sorry, to number, not sure which I'm not sure which number this is, but
This says 14 is red.
15. This relates to the upcoming issue in section 15 about elimination or justification of the renewable rate rider. And there were a lot of comments and at the public hearing and filed that the commenters wanted, I would say, to protect the utilities voluntary program customers from being subject to charges by the utility to recover RPS compliance costs. And so we added this statement that you can see, number 14, a mechanism with supporting testimony to prevent the public utilities voluntary program customers from being subject to charges by the public utility to recover RPS compliance costs pursuant to the voluntary program customer section 62.16.7. So this, we hope, will protect those types of customers. And I think we can move on to section 15, which has a lot of changes from the NOPR, which we discussed last week. From the cross-out, you can see that in section 15I, originally proposed in the second NOPR, was the elimination of the renewable rate rider for cost recovery. As you can see, we crossed that out in response to comments that suggested, advocated for the fact that the section in the statute specifically allows a utility or shall recover the reasonable costs of RPS compliance through the rate making process. And it was argued that the rate making process includes not, rate riders, and that the commission doesn't have the authority to exclude that as a potential option for the utilities. Therefore, in response to those comments, scrolling down, the proposed final order here would move away from total elimination of the rate rider and instead move it towards a justification of continued use on an annual basis of the rate rider. And so if you look at, there were some questions last week about what is now number 4. And so I will read these 7 items that need to be included in the annual justification of the continued use of the rate rider versus cost recovery through base rates and or the fuel clause. So first, an explanation of the costs and benefits of rate rider cost recovery versus the cost and benefits of cost recovery through base rates and the fuel and purchase power cost adjustment clause. 2, an itemization of all renewable energy resources and how the costs of each resource are currently recovered, whether through a rate rider, fuel and purchase power cost adjustment clause, or base rates. 3, an accounting of the RECs that each of the utilities' renewable energy resources contribute to the utilities' RPS compliance annually, and the percentage of total RECs that are retired for annual RPS compliance. and that are attributable to renewable energy assets not included in the rate rider for cost recovery. So that's a long sentence, but what that means is basically an accounting of the RECs for RPS compliance. What percentage of the total RECs that the utility has are actually used for annual RPS requirements, and what percentage of those are not included in the rate rider, but are included then in the fuel clause or base rates. Number 4, an explanation of cost savings realized by utilizing the rate rider, how much cost savings are reflected in the rate rider, and how such cost savings are communicated to the customers. This is the section that Commissioner Hall had questions on, and we discussed number 4 with her, and she can speak for herself, but she knows that this is what is being proposed. Number 5, a description of the information intended to be conveyed by the rate rider to customers. 6, separate calculations of the total cost per megawatt of all renewable energy resources utilized by the utility. All renewable energy resources included in the utility's rate rider, all fossil fuel resources utilized by the utility, and all nuclear resources utilized by the utility. So that would provide a comparison of cost per megawatt hour of all the variety of energy resources used by a utility. And number 7, a demonstration that line loss adjustments to a rate rider, if proposed, are adjusted relative to RPS compliance costs of serving customers at different voltage levels, and not adjusted relative to other RPS compliance costs that do not vary based on voltage. And we discussed this last week. Originally, there was nothing in the second NOPR about line loss adjustments to the rate rider because the rate rider was going to potentially be eliminated. But now that the commission's moved away from that and to this annual justification, we are going to allow demonstration of line loss adjustments to a rate rider as set forth in number 7. And this is a fairly complex section, and I stand for questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Judy?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Fishman.
Yeah, just a bit of quick context. When comments were received, and I've been looking at this rule pretty carefully, and when comments were received from interveners, virtually all of the interveners expressed a desire to move away from rate riders. But clearly there's no legal authority, as Judy explained, for the commission to just blanket say no to rate riders on the cost of renewable energy. And they're broadly expressed that the rate rider right now doesn't communicate anything meaningful. It's just kind of a number that doesn't really say anything that people can understand at any rate. So in putting this together, what this rule essentially does, and Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, or Robert, it just essentially says, well, gee, there's lots of problems with the rate rider, at least as we're now doing it. Let's be sure we justify the need for it as we go forward. And, the goal here hopefully is to get rid of kind of garbage information, strong word I just used there, but I think it's accurate, and just simplify this whole rate making process around the renewables. So that basically is what this part of the rule tries to accomplish, at least in my mind.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. Yes, I think this does quite a bit to strengthen the rule. This is the kind of information that, ordinarily either we don't see or we have disputes about within cases. And if the production of this information is regularized and required under a rule, it just shines a strong light on the value or not of continuing to have rate riders. And I think there's value in information. And since we really we'd have to see a legislative change to not use them, I think the information that's going to be gained as a result of these questions is going to be very helpful in understanding how the utilities are operating with them. So I have to really commend everybody who's worked on this, especially you, Commissioner Fishman. I believe you're probably the genesis of these questions. And you've been really constructive in strengthening rules in this most fundamental and often very tedious way of putting meat on the bones of our rules. And this is a prime example of that. And I'm very impressed, and I'm really glad that staff worked closely with you and we got such a good product. I'm really proud of this part of this rule. Well, I'm proud of the whole rule, but this is really helpful for members of the public and I think companies as well. So,
and Madam Chair, I have to put a lot of the credit here once again on Robert Lundeen, who really took this task on and did a great job of keeping me honest and again, making it as straightforward as we possibly could and eliminating anything that could be confusing or perhaps unreasonable. So just all credit to Robert for sharpening up this rule at every turn and making it fair to all parties. So
thank you very much. Any other commissioners have any comments to make about this rule or questions for Judy?
Well, unfortunately, we have one more section.
Oh, sorry, I forgot, Judy. Please proceed.
Well, this is the last section.
Okay.
Actually, because it's number 22 in the rule, and there's no 23. I went over this last week. If you see, these are the changes from the NOPRD rule, and what it has done is to clarify again that what the statute actually says, which is the application or by a public utility or any other person on behalf of the utility may by application or motion request the commission develop and provide the utility with financial or other incentives to encourage the public utility to produce or acquire renewable energy that : 1, 2, or 3. SPS and other utilities have a misinterpretation, in our opinion, of what the statute says. This is the subject of an appeal now. However, the rule is not stayed, and this change actually does not change at all what our original interpretation of the statute was, which is to produce or acquire renewable energy that 1, 2, or 3. And it clarifies that purely, and then if you go down, we'll scroll down, we did add a section that states, again, for consistent with our position on appeal, that you cannot get a financial or other incentive solely for, I believe, Robert, scroll down, it's further down. Okay, it's in G. The reason it's not redlined is because it hasn't changed from the NOPR. And G is in the NOPR. It says a financial incentive shall only be granted to encourage a public utility to produce or acquire renewable energy to accomplish the requirements of the statute, which is 1, 2, or 3, and shall not be granted to incentivize only the abandonment or closure of a carbon dioxide emitting generating resource. And H just moves a sentence that was further above down to its own section. And sorry, Robert, could you scroll back up again? Let's see.
Okay.
To number C, again, a clarification that you cannot retire past RECs and as an eligible item for receiving a financial or other incentive. The language is stated there: a public utility shall not be eligible to receive financial or other incentives for renewable energy that was produced or acquired prior to the date the commission approves the public utilities application for financial or other incentive for the specific renewable energy investment. And this section also is intended to make it clear that the incentives are applied for one at a time. They're not a rolling incentive application. And this again is consistent with the original rule, which is on appeal, and is consistent with the position that we have taken in our briefs in that appeal. And just to let the commissioners know, if the Supreme Court disagrees with the commission's interpretation and rules for the appellants in that case, we would have to come back and change this rule if they ruled against us. However, at this point, the rule is effective, this interpretation is effective, and we're going forward with it until we have a court ruling.
See, thank you very much, Judy, for going through that point in detail. And is the language in B what was also in the NOPR, or was that an original rule where it says a financial or other incentive proposed under this section shall be to encourage the public utility to produce or acquire renewable energy to accomplish at least one of the following purposes? And then they list the purposes, but I mean, encourage to me seems like it implies prospective application.
Right. I believe that was in the original rule. Is that correct, Robert?
Yes, Judy, that's correct. So Part B is currently on the books right now.
I see.
But yes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. So that's the extent of the changes. Yes, Commissioner Fissman, just going to ask.
Yeah, and again, just want a clarification for anyone listening in who's not familiar with all the details of this. This last discussion we had simply basically says a utility cannot collect incentives for stuff it did 3 or 4 years ago. They can collect incentives for stuff that they're going to do in the future. So that quite simply is all this provision says. You can't just run back and say, we did something good 5 years ago, give us more money for that. And so I just wanted to clarify that for the general public.
Thank you, Commissioner Fishman. And Judy, isn't it true also that the utility has to point out what they're intending to do in the future to the commission and request approval of that incentive, right? That's what this is all about.
Exactly. The statute says by application or motion.
Yes.
They need to request and get approval.
Yeah.
For the financial incentive, they may or may not, depending on what exactly they're doing, need commission approval just to do what they actually do, but unless it's like a CCN or a PPA or something of that effect. But this is requesting approval to receive a financial or renew or other incentive for renewable energy produced or acquired.
Great. I appreciate that, Judy. This whole rule has, I think, been rendered a lot more clear. It was a long road traveled to get to this point, but I think this gets there. So thank you very much for all the hard work. So commissioners, does anybody have any further questions of Judy or any comments they want to make? Now's the time. Hearing none, I think we can move on. Thank you very much, Judy. We'll go to the next item, which is communications with Chief.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Do we not have an order?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I keep forgetting we have to vote.
I'll move to approve the order.
Yes, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Commissioners Maestas and Fishman.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Why don't you want to vote on anything today?
I do. I'm just in a very business-like mode here. I'm sitting here in a hotel room and I have to go back to a conference and I'm all work and no play today.
Just yanking your chain.
Thanks. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any comments at this point, commissioners? If none, can we have a roll call for the vote?
Commissioner Vicente Aguilar,
Aye.
Commissioner Maestas,
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd,
Sure.
Commissioner Hall,
Aye.
Commissioner Fishman.
Okay, if we have to. Aye.
The order is approved by a vote of 5-0.
Great. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, now we'll move on to communications with Chief of Staff.
Good morning, Madam Chair. And
Good morning.
members of the commission. I'll try to stick with Commissioner Hall's Commissioner Hall's business-like approach this morning and keep it brief. I did send a draft letter this morning regarding the legislative priorities. My apologies, that was a few days later in getting to you than I wanted it to be, but I think I've captured everything that's been discussed, and hopefully if you do have any edits, you can get those to me as soon as your schedules permit. I would appreciate that, and we'll get that off to the legislature. And other than that, Madam Chair, I don't think I have anything else this morning, but happy to discuss any topics that you or the commission would like to discuss.
Thank you, Wayne. Does anybody have any topics they want to discuss with Wayne this morning?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Maestas.
Yeah, I had a question. Good to see Wayne. Renata sent an email out to, I think, commissioners and assistants requesting all equipment and information, or not information, just equipment by the 22nd. And I'm just wondering why the 22nd, because, our jobs do continue until the 31st. And I, for one, want to maintain accessibility and my ability to communicate with constituents if anything comes in. So is there a reason why we have to turn in all of our equipment by the 22nd? Is there?
Madam Chair and members of the commission, I'll circle back with Renata on that. My guess is it's probably just trying to work around the holidays and get things done before the end of the year, but we're going to be flexible with you on that. And if there's something that you need to maintain through the end of the calendar year, that we'll make arrangements for that.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate that. That's all I had, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you very much, Commissioner Maestas. I think, Vice Chair Maestas, I think that's important. I had forgotten that item, but I also wanted to question that too, because, I've in the past when I don't know, I think I must have been in General Counsel's office. Sometimes things did come up in that week between Christmas and New Year's. And I think it's far more appropriate for us to stay equipped to be in communication until December 31st. We don't know what will happen. There could be a cold weather event, for example. So I as much as I'd like to make it an easier transition for staff, I'm perfectly willing to do that, on the 31st. But I'm a little apprehensive about doing it beforehand. I'm apprehensive about it. So I'd rather we put it to Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, unfortunately. Any other commissioners want to pile in on this? Okay. All right. Okay. Fine. Steve, there's a hand up on your screen. Did you mean to do that? I can't think you did, but it's a hand raise. If you have something to say, you would like to say?
You're talking to me?
Yes, Commissioner Fishman.
Oh, okay. No, I don't have a hand raised on my screen, but.
All right. Okay, so let's move on to communications with General Counsel.
Madam Chair, I don't believe we have anything. We do have, as you noted, we're heading into the final phase here, I guess, going up to the last meetings. So if we do have anything, we will communicate with you by email. But today I don't have anything.
Okay, well, I did notice that we got an email about anticipated cases for the next 3 weeks. But as we all know, we just moved 3 cases off this docket, this agenda to next week. So I think we should anticipate a longer meeting next week. Wouldn't you think, Mike?
Longer than
the
previous
typical
projection was. Yes, that would be true.
Yeah, and that's fine. I'm hopeful we'll get through all the cases we have before us. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. So now we can move on to communication with commissioners. Does anybody have any communications they would like to share?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Maestas.
I have just one. I don't know how certain our December 19th meeting date is, but I am going to be out on travel. I'm going to be actually out of the country from December 15th through the 22nd. And I don't know if I can participate from another country, but I was asking if we could reconsider December 19th. I realize that the only date I'd have that week that I'd be available is the 23rd, and that's awful close to Christmas. But, just like you just said a while ago, our work takes us all the way through the holidays, and in our case, December 31st. So I'm asking the commission to perhaps reconsider. I have not consulted with IT to see if it's possible for me to participate from another country in the December 19th meeting. So maybe that's what I should do first, but I'd like some flexibility in maybe, if necessary, moving that meeting from the 19th to the 23rd.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Maestas, I'm okay with it. I'd like to hear from other commissioners. We've been operating on Zoom for years now. And, if it's possible for you to participate from another country, that's great. But I sympathize with the apprehension you have about that possibility. Just even whenever I travel, whether or not the connection will be good, if I have all the materials I want to have at hand, and that sort of thing. So I'm perfectly willing to work with you. I don't know how other commissioners feel, but and I, to the extent we all have travel plans, I do. I'll be out of town on the leaving on the 22nd, but I know I can operate from another state. So I don't see why that would have to work a hardship on other commissioners, but I should ask to find out what other commissioners feel. So commissioners, can you please respond to this question, whether or not you'd be available to participate in a meeting on the 23rd if need be? Because I'm certainly willing to.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar and then Commissioner Byrd.
Madam Chair, we all have our personal life. We are preparing for Christmas. It's once a year. And it's really difficult. I was thinking maybe December the 27th, but maybe some, certain individuals will have vacation plans after Christmas. Well, so my opinion will be, let's try the 27th. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Vicente Aguilar. Commissioner Byrd.
Well, 2 points. I probably wouldn't be available on the 23rd. And second, most companies are going to be off on the 23rd because the Christmas falls on the weekend. So that's already the actual holiday. But I would be flying for a good portion of the meeting on the 23rd. So I would not be available. Personally, don't care if you had the meeting without me, but just saying I won't be available. However, like I said, the 23rd is actually the holiday.
Oh, yeah, well, when you say actually the holiday, you mean?
Because Christmas is on Sunday.
Yeah.
So Christmas Eve is, most companies are off on that Friday.
I see. Well, the public isn't off necessarily, but I know they're shopping. But
Christmas Eve is on the 24th.
Right. Correct. Well, I'm flexible. I don't mind having it on the 27th as well. I can do either day. Commissioners, how many do we have available on the 23rd? I know I'm available. Joe's available. Commissioner Fishman, I just want to know whether we have a quorum.
I will make time on either date.
Okay, so you're available either way, as I am. Okay. And Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, I'm hearing you are not available on the 23rd, correct? But you are on the 27th.
Madam Chair, I can call in on the 23rd, but I'm not going to travel to Santa Fe. Thank you.
Oh, I'm not either. But I could call in. Okay, well, that's good to know. And Commissioner Byrd, I know you say the companies are closed, but can you call in on the 23rd as well?
I'll be flying for a part of that during the meeting time. So
I see.
Part of it, but not all of it. Not the first part. I don't know.
Okay.
But just FYI, PNM, I think XL are recognizing the holiday that Friday. So for them, they will be working on their holiday. How about just the regular meeting, the 28th, Wednesday, the 28th? That's our regular meeting time anyway.
Yeah. Commissioners?
But to the point that Commissioner Vicente Aguilar made that she would not come to Santa Fe. Initially, last week, I think it was when you proposed the 19th, you had suggested possibly a lunch.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what Commissioner Vicente Aguilar is referring to. And then you just now said you weren't going to go to Santa Fe anyway. So are we going to do that lunch or not?
Oh, yeah, we are. Well, okay, if I said that, I misspoke. Well, we were talking about the 23rd, but I definitely plan to be there for the 19th. It's regrettable that we won't be able to have Commissioner Maestas there. And I wonder if, well, anyhow, let's talk about business first. Honestly, I didn't think about it, but I certainly could come up one more time. The building's open, so that might be fun. Actually, I would actually enjoy having our last meeting on the premises. Commissioners, what's your thought about meeting on the 28th instead of the 23rd?
That's fine with me. I'll be here all that week between Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. That's okay with Commissioner Fishman? Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, are you all right with that?
That's fine. The 28th?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'll put it on my calendar. I have a family birthday, but that will be later in the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, this is interesting. Well, I'm glad we were able to do this. And I think there are probably some sighs of relief among the staff as well. So, we're getting it away from the pre-Christmas rush, and it's still a few days away from New Year's. And I think this way we'll be able to capture whatever, or at least most of whatever other work is still outstanding and anything new that comes in. So I feel good about this. Any commissioners have any other thoughts you want to share? I guess not. So what we're deciding is we won't be having a meeting on the 19th, but we will be having a luncheon. And we won't be having a meeting on the 23rd, but we will be having a meeting on the 28th. Are we all clear with that? Okay, now having finished the work part, does it make sense to still have the luncheon on the 19th? Does that work for everybody except for Commissioner Maestas? No thoughts there, I see. Okay. We've asked for a head count on that day. I think 40 people have responded. My own assistant will be out of town, I see on chat, but I'm sorry, Colin. We might take a poll of staff to ask them what date they would prefer, not to make things more complicated than they already are, but I guess I'll work with the chief of staff about that. But unless otherwise notified, we're still having the luncheon on the 19th. But that may be subject to change if we can find a time when all commissioners can attend. And Commissioner Byrd and Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, is that helpful for your ability to attend the luncheon or the party, whatever it would be, luncheon or after work?
Yeah, the 19th and 28th are both good for me. So whatever you guys decide to do.
Okay. Commissioner Vicente Aguilar, do you have an opinion about what would be a good date?
Madam Chair, I decline on the 19th. Maybe I can work it into my schedule on the 28th, but I have to think about it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, well, we'll work with that information. Thanks very much, folks. And if there are no other comments, going once, going twice, anybody have anything else to comment on? Okay, then we're adjourned.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. Thank you, Commissioner Byrd and both Santiago and Commissioner Vicente Aguilar.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you guys.
See y'all
Take
later.
care.
Bye-bye.